Hey, everybody. This is Dr. Patrice Buckner Jackson, and this is the Love Always PBJ podcast. You can call me PBJ. And this podcast is dedicated to three things: one, an identity that is securely rooted in Christ; two, purpose that flows from a heart to serve; and three, relationships that are worth the cost. This is my letter of love to millennials, and our goal here is to encourage you in your identity, in your purpose, and in your relationships. Listen, friends, if you have not followed me on Instagram yet, how many times do I have to say it? You need to follow me on Instagram at Dr. Patrice Buckner Jackson. How else are you going to get your spoonful of PBJ every Monday? You got to go to Instagram to get that. And you also get a new episode of the Love Always PBJ podcast every Wednesday. We are here to motivate, we are here to inspire, and we are here to set you on fire concerning your purpose. And today, whenever you're listening or watching this, I got friends to help me out. I am so excited. I've been asking questions of many of you about what are those obstacles that stand in your way of getting your goals done, and what goals are you trying to get done. So we had an episode about building your business from your passion. Tonight, we are talking about education. If you've ever heard me tell my story, you know that education has made all the difference for me. It has been the tool that has literally changed my life and generations to come after me. So I believe in the power of education. I also believe that there are many of you out there who are considering if you should pursue another degree. You are thinking about if you should go get a degree. It's been on your heart for a long time, and for whatever reason, you have not taken that step. So tonight, I have asked my friends to share with you their journeys through education and through obtaining their degrees. And some of us are still working through some of those degrees. We're going to give you the real tonight because our goal is to let you know if we can do it, you can do it too. So here we go. I'm going to ask my friends to introduce themselves. If you would, tell the people who you are.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for having us here. Um, my name is Caleb Rogers. A little bit about me and my background. I work in higher education. I help get students connected with educational opportunities. And so I graduated with my bachelor's in public relations from Georgia Southern University back in 2015. And then basically immediately after, finished my master's of education in higher ed administration, also from Georgia Southern. And then right now, I'm getting ready to finish up my coursework for my PhD in educational policy studies at Georgia State University. Getting ready to start the hard part, look at the research and everything like that. But that's a little bit about me and my background and what got me here.
Great. Thank you, Caleb.
Hey, my name is Lyndsey Williams Mayweather. I work in higher education, and I like to say that I'm kind of like the buffet table for students when they start at university, getting them everything that they need to know for a successful start. I did my undergraduate work at Clemson University. I have a degree in psychology with a minor in health science. And then I went on to Florida State University for my master's in higher education with an emphasis in student affairs. I also have a certificate in institutional research. And I'm currently working on my doctorate at the University of Georgia, studying learning, leadership, and organizational development. I'm a doctoral candidate working on my dissertation, and I am looking at developing expertise and engagement among new employees.
I love it. Thank you, Lyndsey. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, I'm Dylan John, and I'm in industry as in construction project management. I started my my collegiate journey at Middle Georgia College when it was Middle Georgia College, and then of course now Middle Georgia State University. Was there during that transition. That's where I started off, so a community college. Then I transferred to Georgia Southern University to do my bachelor's in construction management. Finished off my bachelor's there, then got a wonderful opportunity to continue on to do my master's. So I did my master's of science and applied engineering also at Georgia Southern. And now I'm in industry. I'm stuck in industry, so I can't seem to get out of industry back into school. But I like where I'm at. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you, Dylan. So good to have you tonight.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jacayla Andrews. I am a registered nurse. I graduated from Georgia Southern University. I got my bachelor's degree in biology at that time. Went on and completed my master's degree in nursing at Augusta University, where I completed this clinical nurse leader program. Um, we are entry level nurses at this point when we do graduate, but we have a master's level of nursing. I plan on taking that even further and becoming a women's health nurse practitioner. I work now as a labor and delivery nurse slash postpartum care nurse. So I am planning on furthering my education and taking care of more mothers inside of the clinical setting.
Yes, I love it, Jacayla. Thank you.
Hey everyone, and Dr. Jackson, thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to be a part of your platform. My name is Dr. Garrett Green. I work in multicultural student engagement in higher education at an institution in Georgia, and my job is to educate students on the importance of cultural competency and also advocate for those that are underserved and marginalized in higher education as well. I graduated with my bachelor's degree in communications from Georgia Southern, stayed there as well and got my master's degree in higher education. And I graduated in 2019 with my doctoral degree in educational innovation.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Green. Thanks for joining us. And I don't know if I've told you all, so I have a Bachelor of Science in Sociology from the College of Charleston. I have a master's in counseling from Webster University and a doctor of education from Georgia Southern University. So with all of those beautiful introductions and all of those degrees, there may be people out here saying, okay, I'm logging off now because I can't do anything with that. That sounds way too fancy. It sounds way too hard. And you're confirming that education is not for me. Let's dig a little deeper. Let's talk about where we came from. And Dylan, I'm going to call on you because I know your story. So can you talk to us a little bit about before you got to Middle Georgia?
Yeah. So before I got to Middle Georgia, I never really thought I'd get to college or go to university. I was in high school, pretty average student for the most part, and then I had a back injury, and then I lost my mom, and then I just had all these things kind of tumble down. Sorry if I get a little emotional, but yeah, it seemed like one thing after the other just kind of beating me down. So college didn't seem to be on the books from everyone else's perspective for me. And I reiterate everyone else's perspective for me. So it was a challenge to try and kind of tell myself, no, I can go to university, I can go to college. Come from a business family in Sri Lanka. Everyone, said, well, you have the gift of the gab, you have it all set up. Your dad's a businessman, you should be able to kind of pick up the pieces there. You will do fantastic in business, don't worry about it, you don't need education. And that really hurt me because it was also a pride thing. And as a South Asian, yes, Asian moms and dads, they're pretty strict. I'll go along with the stereotypes, the expectation of education. And I know it's a global thing, but in South Asia, for some reason, there's this tag along, right? And so that was a little bit of a tough pill to swallow, that it just felt like I wasn't good enough for education. So got an opportunity I did my SATs in 2 weeks, got a decent score. I failed my high school exams in the Sri Lankan context. But here, thank God for SATs and thank God for American universities that didn't really dig too much into my high school scores. They're like, oh, your SATs seem passable. And all of a sudden I had a window of opportunity. So, and here I am, nearly 10 years after with a bachelor's and a master's degree, never, ever, ever, ever thought that I'd even get into a university to start with. So that's a little bit of my story. So yeah, it was a journey.
So for me, young girl, grew up in the country of Georgia near Athens. no one really talked about college around me. No one even, I don't remember having like mentors or people that I thought that I wanted to be like from my hometown that went to college. So it was something that I just was blessed to have been accepted into a program called the Greensboro Dreamers. This three people that mentored us all the way up until high school. And because we had a requirement that we kept our grades up and we attended every after school event that they had for us, which was complicated. But we did it. And because of they really are my angels. Because of them showing me that college was out there. I don't remember ever knowing that there was a such thing as college before them. And visiting colleges and visiting and getting to know college students as my mentors really sparked the interest for me. I don't think that I pursued higher education because I thought that I was going to be somebody. I pursued higher education at that point as an 18-year-old girl from Greensboro, Georgia, because it was getting away from Greensboro, Georgia. And so, and from then on, I feel like God had a plan for me, and everything just started from there. It went from there.
Yeah. Yeah. And now you're a registered nurse.
Now I'm a registered nurse.
From Greensboro, Georgia. That's right. That's right. Y'all tell me why. Why did you decide to pursue even your first degree? For those of you who are still pursuing, why did you continue?
For my first one, it was my mom. I remember when I was in high school, I wasn't the best student for sure. I was really just focused on sports and lifting and like worrying about what I'm going to eat after we got out of school. And I remember one day joking around with my mom because I don't know, I got in trouble or something with a teacher or something, and I told my mom, I was like, I don't really want to do the school thing. I want to do tech prep. I was in college prep, and I said I want to go down to tech prep, and she was like, no, that's like not even an option. Like you can't do that. And as I really reflect on that, my mom was such a driving force and really like pushing me and holding me accountable and really making me see that there were, aspirations and goals that I didn't even know existed that, really without her presence, I really wouldn't have been exposed to. So from her just really staying on me and letting me know that, hey, you don't know exactly what you want to do. Because at the time, like I said, I was really into sports. Like football was my life. And for her really pushing me to let me know that, hey, you're going to want to do something after you graduate from college. What is that going to be? And her experience from graduating from Clark, Atlanta, and for her experience from being a full-time professional and really just understanding the benefits of a degree, she really kind of, I want to say she forced me at that time period to take advantage of everything that education had to offer. So in high school, I never missed a day of class. I may not have had the best grades, but I had perfect attendance because of my mom. She made sure that I was in school every day. And even though I may not have wanted to take the SAT, like she made sure that I signed up and took it. And, if it wasn't for, like I said, her persistence and really investment in me, I wouldn't be where I'm at today for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that push, that advocate, that support. I love it.
Yeah, definitely family. For me, small Dylan, my family is from the Eastman and Cochrane area. So like I spent all of my summers in Eastman. My aunt is actually, she just retired off of the custodial staff at Middle Georgia. So like growing up, my aunt would always joke with me, like, just come move in with me when you finish high school and you could just go to Middle Georgia. And I was like, Auntie, I do not want to move to Eastman full time. Like, I love it, but not that much. And my mom always worked at colleges. I actually grew up in Charleston though. So my mom always worked at colleges, and I would like file paperwork for her, like if I was out of school or whatnot. So it was really just always a part of family life and an expectation that like my aunts and my mom set for me. And I remember my mom like working on her master's when I think I was in middle school, like into middle school going to high school. My mom was working on her master's degree, and that's where she stopped. And so she was kind of like, well, you like got to do more than I did. So that push to want to pursue the doctorate degree was really like, okay, how can I honor my mom and all the sacrifices that she made for me, to keep pushing forward.
You know, Lyndsey, I appreciate you bringing up that example that your mom showed to you. You know, when I talk about my doctorate, I always, full disclosure, tell my testimony. It took me 7 years to get my doctorate. It's a 4-year program. And it took me 7 years, not because I was grinding and pushing for 7 years. It's because 3 of those years I was running from it. When I got to that dissertation phase where you have to write 5 chapters and do research, I had convinced myself that I wasn't a good writer. I had told myself for years that I wasn't a good writer. So I was paralyzed. I could not. I lost my faculty chair because I took so long. I was at the point that I would have been asked to leave the program if I had not done something. The reason why I bring that up is because one of the main motivating factors was my daughter watching me. I was not willing to allow her to see me quit. I was not going to be her excuse that anytime something is hard, you have permission to give up. So when that hit me, that she was watching me not right, she was watching me slowly make that decision that I was just going to let it go. It wasn't worth it to me anymore, which wasn't true, but that's what I was telling myself. That's what turned it around for me and said, no, you got to do this, not just for you, but you cannot give her the idea that it's okay to give up every time something's hard. So that example is so, so, so important. Caleb, why? Why did you pursue and why are you continuing to pursue education?
Yeah, I think starting off at the beginning, college wasn't an option for me. The conversation was actually more so what I was going to major in. I knew I was going to college. I knew I had to. It was more so, am I going to listen to mom and be an educator, or am I going to listen to dad and get a music degree? Jokes on them. I ended up with public relations, and my experience in undergrad, though, I noticed that there were stories like these from my peers and from my friends, and not everyone had the encouragement, not everyone had the support. And even when people decided they wanted to go to school, they didn't always have the same resources, the same privileges, those kind of things that I had that made my transition easy. And so I think that's why I continued. I saw that there were things that needed to be addressed, things that needed to be fixed. And I felt like getting to watch my friends, or more so having to watch my friends go through those kind of things, pushed me to keep going. And I got a passion, and I had stuff that I wanted to achieve, but I knew that I couldn't do it without kind of arming myself with the tools, with the words, with the experiences and stories and things like that. So I knew I had to keep going. I knew I couldn't accomplish what I wanted to accomplish just on my own with my own experiences. So unfortunately, I had to keep going, but I've loved every second of it. And every time I've hit one milestone, I've decided I wasn't quite done and needed a little bit more. So I've continued to find that inspiration and that why through every step of the process.
Yeah. Y'all talk to me about, is it worth it? There's a lot of conversation about, is it worth getting a degree? Is it worth going through higher education? And I get it. It's expensive. It takes time. It takes a lot of effort. Was it worth it for you? Is it worth it?
For me, I think looking at a lot of my American peers, I had the blessing of my father really supporting me through college. So it's sometimes very easy to take it for granted. But also at the same time, my father did a very good job at constantly reminding me about what this investment was. And really and truly, sometimes, and the reason I say this way is a different perspective from many who actually kind of have to work for it. My father worked extremely hard to make sure that I didn't have to do the extra jobs or anything like that to stay in school, which I know a lot of my friends had to do. And in fact, I had one of my friends sat with me one night, and he said, with tears in his eyes, when he kind of heard what my setup was, he said, "Man, you don't understand. I'd kill for what you have in terms of making sure that you get through school." And it was those experiences and those human moments that I shared with my friends that really showed me, yeah, no, this is a big investment. And then I'm talking about being in the moment and in that situation. When you come out the tunnel, yeah, it's worth it. You've accomplished it. You've achieved it. It's something that you have, and nobody can take that education away from you, right? But when you're in it, sometimes it's kind of easy to be like, oh, I really don't want to push through. I can't push through. I have other options. So my father did a very good job of reminding me about the value, and I think having those interactions with my friends really helped solidify, oh, this is a big deal. So yeah, it's been a great value.
For me, just as you both stated, you and Lyndsey stated, for representation, um, for little girls that look like me, or little girls that grew up like I grew up, it's very important for me to, and it's worth it, for us to pursue higher education, because one word that always sticks with me when I think about my story, when I think about my husband's story, and when I think about our lifestyle is trailblazers. And I think it's so important because we need more trailblazers. We need people to go through the things that it takes to go through to get to where we have become. And so for my family, I am that representation for my family. I am the one who was able to get out and pursue higher education. Now my sister is pursuing higher education. Now my brother is pursuing higher education, and it's amazing. And we were told this when we were young, that we all would be where we are now, from a minister. And it's amazing how God has shown Himself to be true. But being that, I can't. I I think it's worth it because it's worth allowing God to use you to become a trailblazer. And it's so important. It's so important for young girls like myself that come from a small country town, where no one ever hardly makes it. But now so many people that can say, not just me, not just Jacayla, the registered nurse. There's many others from my hometown now that are pursuing and have pursued higher education. And we're all, and there's so many that's just like me, that's reaching back out to those people. So being a trailblazer to me is very important. So it's worth it.
I was just going to say, I can definitely be a complainer, and I love to call my mom and try to complain about school. And she won't let me, because she's always saying it's going to be so worth it in the end once you finish. So I'm choosing to believe that this doctorate degree is going to be worth it once I finish. Yeah, so I think it's going to be worth it. But even my undergraduate and my master's degree, I would say I've definitely opened up doors. I've had the opportunity to live in places across the US that I never would have imagined living. So I mean, it's definitely opened up opportunities and grown a network, but it can definitely be trying while you're in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all, let me just say to you, Lyndsey, being on the other side, let me just give it to you now. It is completely worth it. It's completely worth it. And not just for I have a doctorate degree, to have doctor on your name, but I see, especially those who work in our field in higher education, but in other fields where a doctorate is a standard, people who have everything to that point. And then they get to the point where a door is open, but they can't walk through that door because they don't have the key. So and it creates frustration for those folks, because otherwise they would be eligible. But because they didn't get that last key, they cannot walk through the door. So it is absolutely worth it. It is absolutely worth it. And being a person of color, being a woman, what I'm not going to do is give anybody an excuse. I'm not going to hand you the reason not to let me in. If you don't let me in, you're going to have to work real hard not to let me in, because I'm bringing everything that I got. So it is absolutely worth it. It is absolutely worth it. When you get to the point and that next door opens that requires that key, you are going to be so glad. You're going to be so glad that you put in all the effort. And as Jacayla was talking about being a trailblazer, I was thinking about the effort and the work that it takes to be a trailblazer. It's beautiful and it's worth it for what it does for other people, but it is not easy. It is not easy. And so many times we want and we desire to do the next thing, to accomplish that goal, but we want it to be easy. And the thought and the fear of what it's going to cost us to get that done stops us in our tracks and discourages us from actually getting it done. But anything worth having, this is my mantra that I adopted when I was walking through that last year of my doctoral program. Anything that is going to serve me well for the rest of my life is worth temporary sacrifice. And that's what it is. It's temporary sacrifice. If you're going to live the next year, the next 2 years, the next 3 years, the next 4 years, if you're going to be living, breathing anyway, why not find yourself on the other side with something in your pocket that's going to serve you for the rest of your life? So again, I'll share that anything that is going to serve you well for the rest of your life is worth temporary sacrifice. Sacrifice, yes, but does it last forever? No, no. So it is, I would say it's worth it. I got to encourage you, sister. It's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it. Y'all, how do you get it done? How do you get it done? So I know that you have families. I know that Jacayla, you had your son. You're talking to him now. He's good. You had your baby when you were in undergrad. And then your marriage and everything and jobs. And because I know Lyndsey and Dr. Green, y'all are working full time, and Caleb working full time and getting doctorates. Ooh, sometimes I know you wonder what about your life choices, but how do you get it done? Let's give some practical, real life. This is how I make it work in my life. Y'all help somebody.
Well, for me, that's how it looks right there. Having him on my side, there were times, even going back to when I was pregnant with him, I remember walking across Georgia Southern's hot summer campus, 9 months pregnant, still trekking to environmental science. But he made it worth it though. And for him, even being in nursing school, he would stay up with me wee hours of the night, right by my side. He's been with me every step of the way, but it's been hard. It's been tough. It was hard to watch him stay up in the middle of the night, knowing he was only 3 years old, up at 11 o'clock. I really wish he was in the bed, but I also couldn't drag him away from me because that also brought mommy guilt of him having to go to bed without me. So it definitely was tough to have a son and being in school, but it also brought a reward, and because it pushed me and it helped me to know that I had a little one that was going to be tapping on my shoulders every single night, that I was up studying, that I was up praying, that and sometimes he would even pray with me, that I was up crying sometimes, but he was there. And so that's my story with him.
Yeah.
For me, it was kind of, and it's still something I'm learning, but learning to say no to things so I can focus on the things that I have to do and the things that I want to do. I love to travel, and I have like a very good group of travel friends who have been going on all the greatest trips, well, before COVID, of course, that I would have loved to have gone on, but couldn't because there's no way that I was going to be able to get my work that pays the bills done and my schoolwork done, but being able to prioritize. So like maybe there was 1 or 2 trips that I could go on. Like for instance, my birthday was back in September, and I also needed to turn in my prospectus, and it's like, okay, that was the goal, like turn this in so I can go on this trip and enjoy. So I like to set like little, I guess, treats for myself, but that learning to say no has been helpful to get all the things done. And I guess just giving myself grace to, like, if I don't get something done, there's always tomorrow. So
yeah,
but
that's
yeah.
real. That's real. Help us out, Dr. Green. How'd you do it?
One day at a time. That was my motto for the most part. One day at a time, one assignment at a time, one class at a time. And then, just before I knew it, in the grace of God, I was able to get to the end. And I felt like that from, I feel like every degree, from my diploma from high school to undergrad, master's, I feel like that was kind of the mindset that I kind of took at it, just really focusing on the next assignment or the next journey at hand and doing the best I can to really tackle it in the best way possible, and trying not to overthink and overstress, which I think is something that we do a lot in academia. We'll focus so much on it being extremely perfect, or everything being as great or as awesome as you like, but not every assignment or everything you turn in is going to reflect that, whether it's in a grade or whatever form of evaluation, and being okay with that. I'm one of those people that I don't take it into heart as some, but I still do definitely internalize criticism, and sometimes if I don't get the best grades. So that was something that I had to overcome, was just understanding that, hey, sometimes it's okay if you make a B, that's fine. Or if you get a C. Sometimes passing, especially, when you get to graduate school, that's really all you need to get to the next level. Other thing I wanted to make sure I talked about was like having a strong community. So like not only a part of your academic program, but also outside of that. So whether you're in a doctoral program and you having a close relationship with members of your cohort or your faculty members, or it's your friends. I know for sure for every level of schooling I've been through, I've had 2 or 3 friends that have literally supported me so much through the academic journey. And if it wasn't for them, I know I wouldn't be where I am today. Whether that's, them working on assignment and then me seeing them working on assignment and knowing like, dang, I probably should be doing something too. Or it's, them, coming back and talking about an awesome accomplishment, the fact that iron sharpens iron, that was such a strong motivational factor in me continuing to pursue the completing my degrees. And then also, just seriously, God, like that song, if it had not been for the Lord on my side, where would I be? Like that is my academic journey. Like God had his hands on me, and I'm just so grateful for his presence in my life. And I know if I wouldn't have had faith, and he wouldn't have literally kind of nudged me in the right directions and helped me through a lot of the different obstacles that I went through, I wouldn't be where I'm at as well. So those are the 3 big things I wanted to highlight right there.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'll go ahead. Lyndsey and Garrett both said a couple of things that I found myself implementing in this journey. I'm a calendar person, and so I would schedule out my work day, and then I'd schedule out my evenings, and I would say, Tuesday night we're working on this project, but kind of like Lyndsey hinted at, you got to also reward yourself and still allow yourself to be a human, and to be a friend, and to be a family member, and those kind of things. And I think that was something I didn't do early on, and I struggled because I didn't allow myself to still be myself. And doing that, you get so bogged down and you lose your purpose, and you lose what it is that you're fighting for. And so allowing yourself to be human, and like Garrett said, allowing yourself to make mistakes. I have one of my committee members and one of my faculty members, she and I do this exercise every time we meet and every time we have a class together, where I have to make these allowances to myself. I have to allow myself to not know something. I have to allow myself to be wronged, and I have to allow myself to learn something, the smallest thing from whatever it is. And so giving yourself those kind of goals. One small thing that she said that I use in everything now. When you read an article, when you work on an exam or an essay, or when you write, you don't have to learn everything the author wants you to learn. You don't have to write everything that you want to contribute to the world in this one paper. If you can understand or learn one concept, if you can get one point across, that's a success, and that's a success to celebrate. But that's also a success to really motivate you and move forward. So really breaking it down like that, and being intentional with what you're learning and why, but also really intentional with balancing that time. It's important.
Absolutely. I remember my faculty members always told us that a done dissertation is a good dissertation. we would all struggle with trying to get it right and trying to get it done. Like, listen, hey, pull it together. You just need to get this done. Check. You're not trying to answer all the questions. Leave something for somebody else to answer. You just need to answer this one question. What I would offer also, what I learned is whatever works for you in the rest of your life will work for education as well. So when I was in the phase that I was getting ready to write my dissertation, everybody had advice. And I was asking everybody who was a doctor, how'd you do it? How'd you do it? How'd you do it? And everybody had a different method. You know, some people said, oh, I wake up early in the morning and I write for 1 hour a day. And I tried that, and I would sit there for an hour and stare at the computer and get nothing done. You know, and then other people would say, oh, I just took a retreat for a whole week away from everything, and I just wrote all week. So I went to Callaway Gardens for a week, and I stayed for a whole week, and I sat on the porch and watched the water. I got nothing done. I got nothing done. And then at some point it just clicked. The way that I got through undergrad, the way that I got through my master's, the way that I got through high school, for me, late at night, in middle of the night, all night, when everybody is sleeping and nobody else is calling my name, and I have hours to work, I have a span of time, I can crank it out. I can get it done. And of course, I don't do that every night because you need to rest. You got to take care of your body. But for me, it was come home from work, do whatever you need to do for home, get a quick nap, wake up at midnight and hit it until 6 a.m. I would do it and I would get so much done. Not saying that to tell somebody else to do it, but that was my secret. That's how I did all of my papers in my master's degree. That's how I got it done. Even now, if I have a project for work that's a major project, if I give myself that night to do it, I can get it done. But that's what works for me. Whatever works for you in your life, when you have something big to do, your most productive time, that's how you get your schoolwork done. There's no secret to it. Whatever works for you, just keep that up. Just keep doing it. What about fear and doubt and imposter syndrome and all the stuff up here that stops us from accomplishing our goals? Did you all experience any of that? Do you experience it? And how do you get through it?
I'll jump in if no one else is right now. Um, I have this podcast that I listen to weekly, and this wise philosopher on this podcast a few weeks ago said, you got to do it before you feel it. And I wish that I had heard that years ago, because the fear is real, and a lot of that comes from that imposter syndrome. I'm in a program with mostly people that are full-time students. They are TAs and they are RAs, and they are doing all of these things. They're publishing. Some of them are publishing their fourth or fifth articles at this point, and I'm lucky to log into a synchronous class on time. And so I watch some of these students, and I watch my friends in the program, and I just think I should not be here. And by the grace of God, I'm coasting along. But I also I think back again to that purpose and why I'm doing what I'm doing, and the goals that I have for equitable policy and education and those kind of things. Um, Galatians 6:2 says, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ.
Yes.
And so for me, I have to remind myself that this is part of me fulfilling the law of Christ. This is what I'm called to do. And so if I allow that fear to overtake me, um, another thing that you said a few weeks ago is, how can we glorify God for this work that he's done if we omit what he's doing in us? And so I have to remind myself that this isn't my choice to stop out. This isn't my choice to stop what I'm doing, because it's not my work that I'm doing, and it's not for me. And so it's real and it's out there, but you gotta talk it out, like you said, and just go with it before you allow that fear to overtake you, because there are so many excuses not to do it, and you can convince yourself if you take too long, for sure.
Oh, Caleb, that's so good. I love that you just said, this is not my work to do. This is not my goal that I'm accomplishing. Yes, these are our personal goals, but God puts purpose in all of us. But he also makes provisions for that purpose. So not just the cost of it, right? The money of it, but he gives you what you need inside to get it done. Oftentimes the biggest hurdle are the hurdles here. If we can get over the hurdles here, we already have everything that we need to accomplish whatever the goal is. That's what kind of God he is. He's not going to call you to do something and not make a way for you to do it. He is not going to call you to do something that he hasn't already equipped already. And your Bible talks about him equipping us literally knit inside of our mother's womb. So we're not waiting to accomplish or to receive some special characteristics. We're not just waiting in life to be special or to have enough or to be enough. You were created enough. You were created enough. You know, one of my favorite worship songs, there's a part in it that says, mighty are the works of your hands. And when we think about that and all the things that God created, it's like, wow, that is true. But hold up, didn't he create you too? Everything that we see majesty in, everything that we see beauty in, everything that we see power in, he created. But sometimes we forget he created me too. So if he can do that powerful work in all the things I see and all the people I see, I've also got to give credit for what he's doing in me. And it's not about pride. It's not about who I am in and of myself. It's an acknowledgement that I was created by a powerful God that leaves nothing out. He leaves no stone unturned. And he wrote a story and a plan for me from A to Z. And he took care of everything that needs to be taken care of along the way. So then it turns into more of a faith journey. It turns into more of how much do I trust him? And am I going to obey him? Right? I love that. Thank you, Caleb. I love that. Absolutely. It's his work. It's his work, not ours. Help us out.
So, so for me, com- coming from the background I came into college, like I felt this extreme pressure and burden to excel at everything. It was like, since everyone had this perception of me, oh, Dylan can't excel in academia. I wanted to excel in academia and then some. So, Lyndsey was saying that, had to learn to say no. I was struggling at that because I was a yes man for everything. I want to be involved in everything. I want to excel in everything. So it really did come down to prioritizing. And I actually remember there was one spring break. It was my first spring break at Georgia Southern. I didn't go anywhere. I just sat down in my room and I came up with a priority list. These are this is what makes Dylan tick pretty much, like 6 things. And those 6 things were kind of the foundation blocks for anything and everything I did. And that really helped me. And the funny thing is, as soon as I got my job, I actually called it the Focus 6, and I had like these 6 blocks that I kind of built out. And when I went to my job the first month, I actually focused on building on that. So I actually now have a priority pyramid. And I'd shared it with one of my mentors, and one of my mentors said, well, man, if you have this priority pyramid, then you kind of know whether you're happy or whether you're moving in the direction you need to, because now you know who you are. So trying to kind of spend some time and really reflect on who I am and what makes me tick really helped me figure out how to get things done, so to speak, because it allowed me to say no to the things that I really need not be involved in. It allowed me to prioritize relationships, my focus, and a lot of things. But leading into the fear aspect, I mean, I was afraid right through. I mean, my first semester, I didn't know what a GPA was. I'm coming from a completely different system. I don't understand what this system was. So fear was like driving everything. What if I fail here too? Suddenly a door opened, and now what if I fail here? So that was a challenge. But going to what you were talking, and I think Caleb touched on about having faith. I learned that it's important to trust God, but trust people and trust the process. Sometimes you want to be controllers of the outcome, and you want to control the process. I think you all have a word for it. It's called micromanagement or something. I never was a micromanager. But, with life, you become so indulged in like micromanaging that you forget to trust the process and trust the people. It's okay to kind of lay back. I mean, especially in education, that's the whole point. You're learning. So learn to fail and learn to kind of pick back up. So I learned to trust people and I learned to trust process. PBJ, you know very well there wasn't someone who could forward an email as fast as Dylan could. When it came to trying to allocate responsibilities or whatever I was involved in, that's because I learned to trust people. Years before that, I would not trust people, so I would want to do it myself. So yeah, a little bit of both. Sorry, I kind of expanded on.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. It's so good. And I appreciate you bringing up that fear of what if I fail here too? Because we do need to speak to somebody who has had a failure or who hasn't done well. Maybe you didn't do well in high school, or maybe you weren't at the top of your class and you're assuming that education's not for you because, you haven't succeeded in one way or the other, or in your eyes, you haven't succeeded. But I'm here to tell you that what happened yesterday doesn't have to happen tomorrow. A few episodes back, I spoke to my dad and he talked about how he went to the Citadel, failed out there. Then he went to Morehouse and majored in Spelman and failed out there, and then he dropped out of school and he went to the Army. And now he's Colonel retired Dr. Frederick. So whatever happened yesterday doesn't have to determine tomorrow. You are the only person who can decide that. You are the only person who can say, this is what my tomorrow is going to look like, because this is what I'm going to do about it. We got to do something. We got to take a step. We've got to make a turn in order for that to be different. We can't wait. We can't sulk. We can't sit in it. Yes, it happened. Acknowledge it, learn from it, but it doesn't have to repeat itself. It doesn't have to happen again, right? Yeah. Anybody else concerning fear and doubt, imposter syndrome, any of that? How do you get through that stuff?
Yeah, I was going to say my fear, I feel like really was a result out of like this idea of not wanting to like disappoint. Like family is means so much, and wanting to, do everything for them. But I was like so afraid to the point where like I didn't tell anybody that I had gotten into a doctoral program. Like I told my mom, but that was it. Like I didn't post on social media, and I like to post. I don't post anything. My family does like a little at the end, like at our family reunion in August, like we recognize like all the kids or like accomplishments for the year. I was like, Ma, don't put it in like, we don't need to tell anybody. But of course she put it in there anyways. And I was hot, like when they called my name. I was like, Ma, we talked about this. We're not telling nobody till I finish. Like, what happens if I don't finish? And she's like, why would you even say that? Like, you're being selfish right now by like not talking about this. And so this is your platform is probably actually like the most that I've talked about this degree for anybody. So this is my effort of not being selfish and sharing what Guy has been doing for me in this educational journey.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I just got chills all over, Lyndsey. I love it. I love it that you are brave enough and want at that point you want to share, and you're doing the doggone thing. You are doing it. And that don't know Lyndsey, she's a rock star, literally, like killing it at work and also doing this degree and stuff outside, like regionally and nationally in organizations and things. She's a leader. It's who she is. So it's amazing that somebody who has reached all those heights still struggle with the fear of disappointing people. And it's real. That's real. So all of those thoughts, all those fears, all those concerns that you all who are listening and watching us, who you may be experiencing, we want to acknowledge to you today that it is absolutely real. And you've got to learn to do it anyway. It doesn't go away until it's done. You cannot make decisions based on how you feel, because your feelings will change with the wind. Never make decisions based on how you feel. Make decisions based on what you know. Based on what you know. Absolutely.
And Dr. Jackson, I just want to chime in on
Please.
that real quick. First off, Lyndsey does love to post on it. This is a lot for her.
I knew it was coming. I knew there was gonna be a dig at some point.
But
How you gotta tell my life like this, Garrett? Like nobody asked you all of that.
But I was just like Lyndsey too. As a matter of fact, I remember talking to Dominique about it a good bit. Like he'd asked me, he's like, man, you really haven't ever said anything about you being in school. And I was like, yeah. And it was literally for the exact reason that Lyndsey said. In case I failed, I didn't want anybody to know. So like I remember, matter of fact, like when I graduated, I had a few people reach out to me. It's like, dang, like you were in school? Like, like they didn't even know that I had been working on a doctoral degree because I was so worried about, you know, people finding out that I didn't finish and the, like, you know, whatever will go along with that. So it's definitely not worth it. I think that fear, it can hold you back. You know, I probably missed out on having conversations with people that probably could have been more supportive and encouraging me throughout the process. And I think it really was really just based in the fact that, you know, from my high school experience, you know, I always kind of had fear based off of, you know, me being able to truly excel academically. Even though I'd already got an undergrad and a master's, I still was worried if my writing was good enough. Would I be a good enough researcher? Like, how am I going to get through this quant class? Like all those things, even though I was still passing and getting by, like I was doing well, like that fear was still there. And I'm really just grateful due to God, like I said, that I'm able to be at the end. But it was definitely there, and it definitely tremendously impacted me. And I just wanted to tell anybody that's kind of going through that, the importance behind finding a network and a support system. And like Caleb and everybody said, you know, like you are where you're supposed to be. God put you in that program for a reason, and it's really, you know, it's time for you to show your faith and do everything you need to do to execute that to get all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about cost, y'all. We got to talk about money and your own journey, but also I know several of you work in higher education. So, what are some of those resources that people can tap into to get their education paid for? Because a lot of people just don't have it like that, laid aside waiting to pay the tuition. How do people do it?
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of trying to find a free education or a very cheap but still worthwhile education. So if that is through, when I was doing my undergraduate degree, I was fortunate enough to get academic scholarship. So I didn't leave undergrad with really any debt. And then for my master's degree, I was able to be a graduate assistant that covered my tuition. Now, I made some poor decisions outside of my tuition being covered, trying to like live a lavish lifestyle in grad school, and walked away from grad school with a little over $30,000 in debt, just because I was making bad decisions with my money, but my school was paid for. And at this point, my doctorate degree is paid for from work, so that tuition assistance. So I think if you can find yourself in either a job that's willing to cover all of your tuition, a portion of your tuition, or if you're in a situation where you're able to go to school full-time and take on a graduate assistantship or research assistantship, I believe there's like no reason to pay for school 100% out of your pocket. There might be some like little fees here and there that you might need to pay for, but definitely take the time to do your research and figure out like, is it worth me quitting my job full-time so I can pursue school full-time and not walk away with debt? Or can I be strategic and find a job somewhere that's going to offset my tuition? When I got my job where I am now, one of the reasons was because I knew that I wanted to go to University of Georgia, and I knew that they were going to cover my tuition. So I was like, check, and we will make that work. And even times I'm like, man, I don't know how long I'm gonna be here. I know I'm gonna be here till I finish this degree. That's for sure. For free, because I don't want to pay for any more schooling that I don't have to. And then thinking about things like outside of just our higher education too, like there's so many like free opportunities, whether like it's YouTube or just like going to seminars in the community. I just think there's so many ways to get education for free, but that's my soapbox.
Absolutely. I love it.
I want to touch on something that Lyndsey said. She said, a cheap but worthwhile education. And this was when we were talking about the worth earlier, was when my computer decided I didn't need to participate anymore. But I think that the worth of education is what you make it. It's what you put in and it's what you pull out of it. And so we get so excited about prestige of schools, and we have these names and we have these recognized programs, but at the end of the day, it's what you make of it. And so I think that when we talk about cost, I've been lucky, kind of like Lyndsey talked about this last program, to go through 2 degrees being covered by my work, but at the same time, it's what I make of it. And so if you don't have those opportunities, if you are having to pay out of pocket, if you're having to dig in a couch cushion to get those books paid for one semester, just because someone went to a certain school or did a certain program doesn't mean you have to. And it doesn't mean that you going to an option that's closer to home or that's more affordable makes you any less of a scholar or an academic or a professional. And so I think it's huge to remind everyone that it's what you make of it. And if that means driving 5 minutes down the road to a school that has some evening classes, but that's going to change your life and allow you to change other people's lives, and then that's a smaller cost, and it's still just as much worth it as anything else.
Absolutely.
If I can add to what Caleb said, I think far too often we also look at education as a cost and not as an investment. And if you actually approach it as an investment, you're really going to try and drill down on how you're going to make your investment work for you. Whenever you think about cost, you're always thinking about, oh, how do I pay this off? Or how do I do this? How do I do that? It's just such a cumbersome mindset. So if we try to kind of reframe it, I think where, okay, what is the investment of going to college? Then you begin to try and, crunch down on those decisions like, okay, how far do I have to travel? I mean, just like you're budgeting and you're making investments on how much you want to invest in a stock or how much you want to put in your 401k, you're trying to make all your money work for you. Then whatever you are investing, and even if you get all the scholarships in the world or everything is funded, your time, all those things, I think in terms of investment in your education, I think is very important. Because once you start crunching all that, it goes back to that question, then you will make it work, and it will be all worth it. Because if you've done your homework kind of foundation to make this money work, it really will. I mean, I had so many wonderful opportunities to travel with the university, get involved, do so many things, be exposed to perspectives and personalities that I would have never thought or dreamt of being involved in, or all those things is because I chose to try and spend a lot more time in being involved with people on campus, as opposed to, and then, hey, sometimes you just need to sit down at home and play a video game, and that's okay. Not saying no. Mm-hmm. But also it's about that whole investment thing. Am I investing my time well? Am I investing my money well?
Yeah. I'm glad you went back to, is it worth it, Dylan? Because that's exactly what was on my mind. People always say, hey, I can start this business, or I can go into this field or that field. And why do I need to go through all that time to get a degree and pay all that money? Yes, you can. And nothing against it, not knocking it at all. What I will say, and what I always encourage is, why not have both? Because when the economy fails, when things go down, who keep their jobs? People with degrees. People who have their own businesses often struggle when things get rough, because it's all on their shoulders. So I am a believer in having both. You can have your degree, have your career, and have your business on the side, or have your degree and do your business full time. But if things shift, if things get rocky, you got a key in your hand. And that's what the degree is. It is a key in your hand that will open doors for you. So I always encourage, why not both? Set yourself up for success. Set your family up for success, making wise choices, thinking about the future. Regardless of how things go, you get that key in your hand and it opens doors when you need those doors open. And I also want to say, concerning cost, as Lyndsey and everybody has shared, there are opportunities to work off tuition. Students can get jobs on campus, and they can work a graduate assistantship, you get paid and your tuition paid. So you get a check in your pocket and you get your tuition paid. I mean, it goes from thousands of dollars to 100 and something. That's big deal. If you're not in higher education, you may not know that. So many times I've met with students who have struggles. You know, some of them may not have enough food, or some of them literally may not have a place to lay their head. All of these different troubles and trials, higher education, colleges and universities are set up to help. There are funds, there are resources, there are outlets that can help students who are struggling with different things. But so often I've seen students get so overwhelmed by their trouble and they make the assumption that there's no answer and there's no help. Literally, if you can bring yourself to open your mouth and ask the question, I bet there's a resource. I cannot tell you how many internal scholarships. So most people think scholarships freshman year, right? Let me apply for scholarships before my freshman year. What most people don't understand is many universities have scholarships for people who are not freshmen. They have internal scholarships for people who are in their second or third year, and those scholarships don't get applications. So the money just sits there. It's based on your major, or it's based on an interest, or it's based on a characteristic that you hold. And it's at your college or university. They have foundation accounts that can help students. But oftentimes students don't know about these opportunities because they don't ask. So always ask. The worst they can say is no, and you're in the same situation you were in. But if the answer is yes, it can take some stress off of you, and it can take some worry off of you, so you can really focus on what you're here to do. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Lyndsey.
Can I just add to that, in addition to schools, like your professional organizations also offer scholarships. Like I said, I'm getting my doctorate degree paid for through work. That's tuition. I mean, books, to travel to school is still a financial obligation. And so I applied for a scholarship through my professional organization and got one. And so I would say apply for all types of scholarships, even if you think like I might not need it. You definitely need it.
Absolutely. And if you don't know, just ask somebody at a college or university. If you don't know where to start, ask someone, hey, where are the scholarships? Where can you help me out? There's an Office of Financial Aid. Somebody there can tell you where to start. Put your name out there, do the application, write the personal statement, get this money so that you can get this education that is going to continue to pay you dividends over and over and over and over again. Y'all, we're getting to the end. I don't want to hold you long, but I will ask, and I'm hoping that each of you will be willing to give a piece of advice. One piece of advice for those who are thinking about it, really feeling pressed to do it, really feeling called to take this step and pursue education in one way or another. And there may be people who are thinking they need to go get their GED. There may be people who are thinking about an undergraduate degree or a master's or a doctorate or whatever it might be. Whatever your level is, we are encouraging you to take the step tonight. So one piece of advice, what would you give to help them through that journey or to encourage them to take the step? And y'all can just jump in when you're ready.
I'll go first. I'd say the importance behind doing your research. So in a variety of different ways, like, you want to do your research to make sure you understand how the program you're going to be doing will impact your life in a variety of different ways. So from the application process to you being accepted and you understanding the amount of coursework that you will have to do, and the impact that'll have on all the different aspects of your life. So whether that's you're a full-time employee and you're working, or you have children, or you help take care of a family member, just being mindful of how all of that plays into it. But then also, like Dylan was saying, evaluating your return on investment depending on whatever program or major you're looking at going into too. I know sometimes I think about higher education and I joke around with Lyndsey with this. And, you know, if I would have known some things back then, would I still be here? I don't know, but, you know, I'm glad I am. But I say all that to say that it's really important that you really do your research to understand about like not only what it's like being a student in that program, but also the professional aspects that go along to it when it comes to, you know, how much you get paid and a whole bunch of different things that go along with that, because all of that will drastically impact a whole bunch of different aspects of your life while you're applying, while you're a student, and then also as a graduate.
I'll say one piece of advice that I would give is it goes back to faith, having faith and talking with God. One thing that I always tell people about myself and how I got to where I am is that I remember being young and asking God what He wanted out of me. And the boy, it's been a ride. And I've gotten to a point where me and God have to have a face-to-face conversation sometimes. But this is what I asked for a long time ago. And so I feel like it's really, really important. I know everyone may not believe in the same faith that I believe in, but it's so important to reach and to reach out and to dig within yourself and to find that purpose. Once you find your purpose, it's hard to go back. It's hard to go back away from your purpose. God draws you to your purpose. It follows you. And when life gets tough, when it gets rough, when education is too expensive, when classes are hard, when fear takes in, it always comes back down to what is your purpose and what are you striving for. And I feel like God will get you there. He'll take you there. And so once you tap into what it is that you like, what it is that your purpose on earth is and what God has for you, and you combine all that together, I think that it'll all flow together once you can get that under figure that out.
I love that, Jacayla. Beautiful. First things first. First things first. Establish the foundation, and you can soar from there. Absolutely. Thank you, Jacayla.
I'd share two things: is build a plan and build a product. And what I mean by that is when you talk about building a plan, it's kind of, you know, sometimes it's difficult to take the first step without knowing what the first step is. So whether that be applying to an institution or meeting a counselor for something and figure out what your options are, or talking to a mentor in an industry that you may want to go into and really trying to figure out what that may look like, you have to build a plan. And I think, I initially started out in the civil engineering route, and I was always a business management guy. And I went civil engineering and I was like, boy, I don't want to be calculating stuff. And even if you don't see my face, I'm a South Asian, so everyone thinks I'm an engineer and I love to calculate stuff. No, I hate calculating stuff. Like, that's not what I want to do with my life. I love working with people. I love working with on the business management side of things. And then I found construction management, and I wouldn't have found that had I not taken the first step of actually going into schools, starting down the civil engineering path, really trying to kind of dig down into what these classes and programs look like and so on. So that's building a plan. And when I say building a product, I always talking about the return on investment. For me, I was always looking at, okay, what am I packaging to sell a potential employer? It's not, okay, it's a resume, but what am I selling them? What is my unique selling proposition? So even from my thesis to everything in my mind was like, okay, I'm building a product. What does this look like? What am I focused on? So I think those two things really did help, and I would share that with anyone who's considering a collegiate journey: is build a plan, build a product.
I love that, Dylan. And one thing I want to pull out of that build a plan, build a product is you also gave us permission to pivot. So a change of major or a change of direction, even after you take that first step, you're learning as you go. So it may not be the plan that you make from the outset. The plan changes. I tell students all the time, the plan can change, but the destination didn't. So the way that you get there may change, but you will still get to the goal. So you don't have to know it all from the beginning. You just got to take a step and get into that. And then you learn and navigate it as you go. I love it. I love it. Thank you, Dylan.
That kind of goes along with what I was going to say to anyone thinking about taking that first step. Remember that it's just that it's a first step. it's important to have that purpose and that end goal in mind, but at the same time, you don't have to have the whole plan figured out. You just got to take the step, and you have to make your educational journey. It doesn't have to match anyone else's. It doesn't have to be what someone else tells you it has to be. If you take that step, then it prepares you to take the next step and the next step. And I'm about to be on right there with you, Dr. Jackson. It can look like a 7-year doctorate degree. It can look so different than what you may have expected or what you've seen in other people's lives, but it's your educational journey. And the important thing is that you're taking that first step and then the step and then the step again. So I would say just that. Think of it as taking that step, and don't be afraid to take where those steps kind of lead you in your own journey.
I love it. Thank you, Caleb, to take that step. And you know what? I don't even regret that 7-year journey. I learned so much about who I am and what I can do through muscling through that. I mean, I always tell myself I finished, but it was an ugly finish, honey. It was not a photo finish, but I finished. So looking back on it now, I wouldn't change a thing. Not only did I get a degree, but I learned so much about PBJ. So yeah, we're in there. You got this. You got this, Caleb.
I feel like the only thing I would really add to all of that great advice is if you're like thinking about getting started, I love like a good pro con list of reasons why, and maybe if you do need to think about like what else is out there, like really being able to see what all of my options were was helpful for me to get started. And then like once I had all of that down, really just praying over those options and taking it to my close circle and asking them to pray with me. And so, being able to touch and agree and manifest what it was that was in store for me was really kind of how I would suggest getting going.
I love that, Lyndsey. And I think that's the perfect place for us to go as we end this. I always say that you don't search for purpose, you seek the purpose giver, and purpose will flow. And that is through prayer, and that is through seeking Him and talking to Him. And you know what's beautiful? God knows how to speak to us. He knows how to direct us. He created you. So He's not in heaven wringing His hands, wondering how He's going to get a message to you. He knows exactly. He knows exactly how to steer you, how to direct you, how to make sure that you're in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. Your job is to just obey. Trust Him and obey. So, as we close this today, I am so grateful for all of my friends who said yes to join for this conversation and who was willing to share their journeys with all of you. I'm so grateful that you all have watched or listened to what we have to share tonight. But I got to encourage you, friend, it's time. It is time to take the step. All of the excuses, all of the fear, all of the things that have been holding you back, it is literally time to stash that all away, step over it, and get it done. And we are examples that you can do it. You can do it. You already have everything you need to get this done. Your job is to tap into that through prayer and ask God to be God in your life. Let Him be God. Let Him show you what He can do through you, because that's the miracle He's trying to do. So let Him do it. Let Him do it. Y'all, thanks for listening to us. As always, I want you to remember that you are powerful, you are significant, and you are loved. Love always. PBJ.